Hi, thanks for listening. This is Dr. Danny Pine, the Deputy Editor of the American Journal of Psychiatry, and I'm going to be talking about the March issue of the journal, and I'll be describing two sets of very exciting results that will appear in the March issue. In the realm of neuroscience, two techniques that have generated tremendous enthusiasm for their potential for psychiatry are brain imaging and genetics. Ecker and colleagues report an important new study that combines these techniques to ask questions about autism spectrum disorders. So this new study first collects DNA from a relatively large sample of subjects, more than 600, some of whom have an autism spectrum disorder and others of whom are healthy. Next, the study measures aspects of brain structure using MRI. And finally, the study relates the genetic correlates of autism spectrum disorders to the underlying brain morphometry correlates of autism spectrum disorders. And the important aspects of the finding are to suggest that there are relations between the correlates of autism spectrum disorders at the genetic level and at the brain structural level. And this suggests to us that while we have much to learn from research on genetics and research on imaging in their own right, perhaps even greater insights will emerge when we combine imaging with genetics. One of the most exciting areas in both science and clinically relevant breakthroughs examines the genetic correlates of mental disorders. A new paper by Mahjani and colleagues examines genetic aspects of obsessive-compulsive disorder, or OCD. And there are a few aspects of the new findings that are particularly important. One aspect is that the report is based on a relatively large sample, and it uses a new important technique known as GCTA. Another aspect is that the report examines what is the underlying genetic architecture of OCD. And the main finding to arise suggests that OCD, like many mental health disorders that we understand from a genetic basis, is what we call highly polygenic. What that means is that the causes of OCD arise from many, many genes, dozens to hundreds of genes, potentially, that each have relatively tiny effects. And this is important for us because it tells us when we want to clinically translate genetic findings, we're going to need to think about psychiatric disorders in new ways, ways that are different from the classic genetic disorders that we all learned about when we attended medical school over the last few decades.